You didn't stumble across this by accident. Somewhere deep inside, you already know that. Maybe you felt it your whole life, that eerie sense that you don't quite belong, not because you're less, but because you're other. You've walked through life feeling like you're standing behind a glass wall, watching the world move, yet never fully able to step into it. You've looked up at the sky and asked questions most people are too afraid to whisper. You've sat in the silence of your own soul and felt something ancient stir inside you. And that's stirring. That's the first sign. The beginning of a journey that few ever recognize and even fewer survive. You may be one of God's dark chosen ones, and the most terrifying part. The top 1% never even realize it until it's too late to go back. The first sign is the unbearable weight of awareness. It's not knowledge, it's knowing. You don't just see things, you feel them. You walk into a room and you absorb the energy like a sponge. You hear someone speak and you sense the lies hiding behind their words. You're not trying to read people, it just happens. You've probably been called too sensitive, maybe even unstable, but this isn't fragility, it's a supernatural radar, a built-in system that God implants into His chosen ones to protect them from a world that would otherwise devour them early. The reason you're hyper-aware isn't a flaw, it's a calling. Your nervous system is wired to detect spiritual frequencies that most people can't even acknowledge exist. But with this awareness comes isolation. That's the second sign. The world doesn't understand you, and at times it feels like it doesn't even want to try. You've probably lost people without explanation, been ghosted by friends, rejected by lovers, avoided by family. And the worst part is, you often blame yourself. You think something must be wrong with you. But what if I told you this was all part of the divine design? What if your loneliness isn't a punishment, but a preparation? God isolates His chosen ones before He elevates them. Why? Because when you're surrounded by noise, you can't hear the whisper, and the whisper is where God speaks. Alone in your room, in the silence after the storm, in the moments when you feel like you've been abandoned, that is when the true initiation begins. The third sign is an inner war that never seems to end. You've probably fought with yourself more than anyone else. You question your worth constantly. You oscillate between feeling like a divine being and feeling like a complete fraud. One moment you're filled with vision and power, and the next you're drowning in self-doubt and despair. But here's the secret. The war inside you is not a sign that you're broken. It's proof that two realms are colliding within you, the human and the divine. God's darkest chosen are not chosen because they're perfect. They're chosen because they can hold the tension between light and shadow. They are the bridge, the battlefield, the place where heaven and hell wrestle for influence. Have you ever asked yourself why your life has been harder than others? Why you've been through things that would have shattered most people? Abuse, abandonment, loss, addiction, betrayal, you name it. That's the fourth sign. A history of deep suffering. This isn't random. It's not bad luck. It's not karma. It's training. God allows His darkest chosen to be forged in fire, because only those who've stared into the abyss and didn't flinch can walk through hell carrying the light. You've been broken not to be ruined, but to be rebuilt stronger, wiser, and filled with compassion that can't be faked. Your pain is your passport. It's the ink God uses to write your authority. Now listen closely, because this part is crucial. The fifth sign is an unexplainable pull toward the unknown. You've always been drawn to the strange, the mystical, the forbidden. Not out of rebellion, but because something in you remembers ancient texts, sacred symbols, dreams that feel more real than reality. You may have been fascinated by spirituality, the occult, or ancient civilizations since you were a child. You may have had visions, psychic dreams, or déjà vu that defy logic. This isn't fantasy. It's memory. Your soul has walked this path before. And God is waking up the codes within you. You're not learning, you're remembering. That's why you feel ahead of your time. Because you are. But remember this, recognizing these signs isn't enough, because the sixth sign is spiritual ambivalence. A part of you wants to surrender, to step into your calling fully, but another part resists, sabotages, runs. You get close to breakthrough and then disappear. You feel something rising in you and then shut it down. Why? Because stepping into your divine purpose means you have to die to your false self. And that's terrifying, but it's also necessary. You can't carry the weight of your calling while still clinging to the comfort of your conditioning. At some point, you'll have to choose safety or truth, approval or authenticity, sleepwalking or awakening. And finally, the seventh sign, the one that truly sets the dark chosen apart, is the ability to walk alone in the dark with your eyes open. While others beg for light, you've learned to see in the shadows. You've made peace with the silence. You've stopped fearing the unknown and have started listening to it. That's when God begins to move through you. Not in dramatic lightning bolts, but in subtle, powerful shifts. You speak, and people shift. You enter a space, and something changes. You're not even sure why, but you don't need to know. You just need to be, because your presence is the message. So let me ask you the question that will haunt you until you answer it honestly. What if everything that hurt you was the very thing that marked you? What if God didn't choose you despite your pain but because of it?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound spiritual lesson.
What most people never understand is that God often hides his strongest warriors in plain sight. Not because they are weak, not because they are unworthy, but because visibility too soon would destroy what must be forged in silence. If you've lived your life wondering why no one truly sees you, why you're always the one behind the scenes, the one overlooked, the one forgotten, this is for you. You weren't forgotten, you were hidden. And that's the difference between the called and the chosen. The called want attention. The chosen are hidden because their value is too sacred for the world to touch prematurely. You've probably felt the ache of invisibility. You've watched others get praised for half the effort, for half the heart, while you labor in the shadows, giving everything and still remain unseen. It hurts. It confuses you. You start to doubt yourself. You ask if maybe you're just not good enough. But what if I told you that your invisibility is your anointing in disguise? The world cannot crown what God has not yet revealed. And the longer the waiting, the greater the weight of the purpose. You are not behind. You are being preserved for a moment that's bigger than you could ever imagine. This is the sacred paradox of being God's dark chosen one. You are set apart in ways that make you feel left out. You don't fit in, not in relationships, not in institutions, not in culture. You try to blend in, but something in you always resists. You're too deep, too intense, too sensitive, too awake. And so you withdraw, not out of fear, but because your spirit knows the world's noise will drown your inner voice. This withdrawal is not weakness, it's wisdom, because in the silence, God is doing his most important work in you. He is fine-tuning your discernment, sharpening your intuition, building your resilience not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. Do you ever wonder why your timing has never matched the world's timing? Why every door that should have opened seemed to slam shut right when you were ready? Why the relationships you thought would carry you collapsed when you needed them most? That's because your path is not linear. God's chosen ones walk a spiral staircase, upward, yes, but through levels that look like confusion to the untrained eye. Your detours were not detours. They were divine rerouting. Your delays were not rejections. They were refinements. You were not being punished. You were being hidden in the cleft of the rock while your soul was being carved into something unshakable. And here's the real test. Can you remain faithful in the hidden space? When no one is clapping for you, when no one sees your tears, your growth, your effort, can you keep showing up, even when it seems like heaven is silent? That is the furnace where the dark chosen are purified. Because once you finally emerge, you cannot be fragile. You must carry a truth so deep, so rooted, that no applause can inflate you and no criticism can deflate you. That kind of depth can only be built in obscurity. So if you've been feeling buried, remember this. Seeds are buried before they bloom. And you, my friend, were not buried to die, you were planted to rise. You're not just waiting on God. God is waiting on you to stop seeing your hiddenness as a curse and start recognizing it as your consecration. Your throne is being prepared in silence. Your crown is being forged in fire. And when the time comes, the world won't just see you, they'll feel you. Because the ones who are hidden the longest often carry the deepest authority when they rise. But before that moment comes, you must answer the question that burns beneath every delay, every silence, every door that stayed closed when you begged for it to open. Can you trust that the darkness you've been walking through is not your grave, but your womb? There's a truth no one tells you about being chosen, especially one of God's dark chosen ones. The path is paved not with glory, but with fire. And not just any fire, the kind that doesn't come to destroy you, but to reveal you. You know the one I'm talking about. The emotional inferno that consumes everything you thought you were, everything you depended on, everything you thought you needed. The betrayals you didn't see coming. The nights you cried so hard your body broke into pieces. The dreams that crumbled in your hands after you gave them everything. That fire. It didn't come to burn you, it came to forge you. You may not realize it yet, but the greatest power you carry is coded inside your deepest pain. Not in spite of it, because of it. You can't fake the kind of strength that comes from surviving what tried to destroy your spirit. You can't manufacture wisdom that was born from suffering that had no name. That's why the dark chosen ones are so rare, because most people run from the fire. But you stayed. You screamed, you questioned, you doubted, but you stayed. And that's what made you dangerous to the enemy. Because you didn't just survive the fire. You learned to walk through it. You began to see that the worst moments of your life weren't random. They were initiations. Chapters in a sacred manual only the chosen are ever allowed to read. And every time you were brought to your knees, something inside you cracked. Not to break you, but to let the light in. You began to feel things other people couldn't. You started to sense patterns beneath the pain. You started to notice that every time you were stripped of something external, something internal would awaken. A deeper peace, a clearer intuition, a sharper vision. It didn't make sense to your mind, but your soul knew exactly what was happening. And it's in this sacred contradiction, the paradox of suffering and awakening, that your true power was born. You began to realize that your pain gave you access to a dimension most people never touch. A layer of reality where masks fall away and truth whispers so loud it's deafening. You started to walk differently, speak differently. You didn't need to raise your voice to be heard. Your presence became the volume. You didn't need to prove your worth. Your scars did the talking. But here's the twist most people will never understand. You didn't become powerful because you avoided the darkness. You became powerful because you befriended it. You stopped running from the parts of yourself that were wounded. You started asking your pain what it was trying to teach you, instead of asking God to take it away. That shift from resistance to reverence is what unlocked your spiritual authority. Now, you carry something that can't be taught. A frequency, a weight, a presence. You walk into rooms and hearts begin to open, not because of what you say, but because of what you carry. The fire didn't make you loud, it made you real. Raw, unshakable. And the world is starving for that kind of authenticity, that kind of presence, that kind of power. But let's be honest, carrying this kind of power is lonely. You often feel like you're carrying something too heavy for the world to understand. And you are. That's why God gave it to you. Because He saw what you didn't see, that your pain wasn't a punishment. It was a portal, a doorway into the realm of the spirit where few dare to go. And once you walked through it, you couldn't go back. You were never meant to. So let me ask you something only a dark chosen one will understand. What if the very fire you begged God to take away was the same fire he used to awaken your destiny. There comes a moment in every dark chosen one's journey when the questions stop looking outward and start turning inward. You've begged for signs. You've pleaded for clarity. You've looked for mentors, healers, teachers, anyone who could explain why your life feels like a continuous unraveling. But eventually you stand in front of the one thing you've been avoiding all along: yourself. Not the version the world sees, not the mask you wear to survive, but the real you, the eternal you, the one that has carried divine codes across lifetimes. And in that moment, you realize something that changes everything. You are the answer you've been waiting for. We spend so much of our lives looking outside ourselves, hoping that someone will validate our pain, interpret our path, or unlock our potential. But when you are one of God's dark, chosen ones, that luxury is stripped from you early. Why? Because if someone else can give you your power, they can also take it away. But when your power is born in the silence of your own soul, when it's carved from the stone of your solitude, no one can touch it. That's the final initiation, the realization that your journey was never about becoming something new. It was about remembering who you already are. And who are you, really? You are the bridge between realms, the quiet storm, the sacred disruption. You carry the frequency of truth in a world addicted to illusions. You've been gifted with eyes that see beneath the surface, ears that hear what goes unspoken, and a heart that feels what others suppress. That's not accidental. That's assignment. You're not here to fit into this world. You're here to reshape it one awakened soul at a time. And that's why your life has been anything but ordinary. Because the deeper your purpose, the more pressure you had to endure to become it. You've been trained in silence, refined by rejection, molded by pain, and each trial wasn't just a test, it was a teacher. Every heartbreak taught you compassion. Every betrayal taught you discernment. Every delay taught you patience. Every loss taught you surrender. And now? Now you carry a wisdom that can't be bought, taught, or mimicked. You carry presence. And presence is the most powerful force in this world. It's what changes atmospheres. It's what breaks generational curses. It's what heals without words. And you, chosen one, carry it effortlessly because you earned it. But this awakening isn't just for you. That's the final lesson. The power and awareness you've cultivated in the dark must now be brought into the light, not to be worshipped, but to be shared. Your life is no longer about survival. It's about transmission. You are a transmitter of divine truth, a lighthouse for those still lost in the storm you once survived. You carry the codes for those still asleep. And your authenticity, your raw, unfiltered, untamed truth is what will wake them up. So don't wait for permission. Don't wait for the perfect moment. Don't wait for someone to anoint you. You've already been anointed by the fire. You don't need a stage. You are the stage. Every room you walk into becomes sacred ground because of the battles you've conquered in silence. Every conversation you have becomes a healing, whether you realize it or not. Now the final question is this: will you accept the weight of your light? Will you stop shrinking, hiding, second-guessing, and finally own the truth of who you are? Because the world doesn't need more noise. It needs your presence. It needs your story. It needs your scars. It needs your light, the kind that was born in the dark. You're not crazy. You're not broken. You're not lost. You're chosen. You're marked. You're ready. Not because someone said so, but because you remembered. And now that you remember, it's time to rise. Because you are no longer waiting for the world to change. You are the change.